Hi, welcome back to another vinyl show and tell. So just a short one today. I just wanted to talk about one album. This is not a recent find, although I did buy it this year. But it's something I've felt the need to get off my chest. And I need to talk about this album here and this band. This is Big Star's #1 record. Okay, so the video is not really an appraisal of the album. It's just sort of another factor that I wanted to just mention. It's almost been bothering me. So let's get to it. So basically, I've been collecting records 29 years. It's flown by, but I'm not going to digress into that. For the first 28 of those years, I'd never ever heard of Big Star. I'd not heard of them. What you have to bear in mind is that the 1970s is by far my favourite decade of music. I consider it the best. It's the most interesting. It's the most diverse. You know, you name it, it's all in there. But for some reason, I'd never ever heard of Big Star. They first came to my attention on another YouTube channel where they were praising the hell out of it, basically, that particular album that you saw there, #1 record. Since then, I continue to watch lots of other YouTube music videos, and it just kept coming up all the time. I saw posts on Facebook and other social media where it was just getting mentioned and mentioned and mentioned. And ever since then, it's weird, it seems to be regarded as, when I say it, I mean the band, they seem to be regarded as a benchmark band, a band that other subsequent bands get compared to. They seem to be that popular and that big, and I just can't understand how I've gone all this time and never ever heard of them, and yet now they just seem to be everywhere. I would compare them when I say sort of I mention benchmark bands. You know, you could mention bands like the Beatles, Pink Floyd, The Clash, Joy Division, The Smiths. Those sort of bands that literally they're genre defining, and Big Star keep coming up and getting mentioned on social media and other people's YouTube's videos as a real genre defining and just a sort of comparison band. What I just can't understand is that where have I been all this time? How had I never ever heard of them? You've got to bear in mind that I collect some pretty obscure stuff from 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond. You know, I've got all these unheard of post-punk bands, long forgotten post-punk bands, obscure prog rock bands. Why have I never heard of Big Star before? I just don't understand it. And yeah, it's just bothering me a little bit. I just felt the need to discuss them and get it off my chest. This particular issue here, I had to go on eBay for this. I've never seen one in the wild. I actually deliberately sought this one out to see what all the fuss is all about. It's a mid-80s press reissue on Big Beat. It's the only one I've got. That in itself, I mean, reissued in 1986. Now, in the mid-80s, the whole reissue, the sort of concept of reissues wasn't really a huge thing back then. I don't think it was. I think sort of reissues for kind of 70s albums came into more prominence in the 90s and beyond, and it still goes on now. You know, even more than ever when you consider the sort of box sets that get released. But the fact that this was reissued in the 80s must mean that there was a real need for this album and a popularity even back then. I mean, in 1972 when it was originally released, I don't know how well it sold. It seems to be rare and expensive, certainly on Discogs. It's an expensive record. It's well into three figures, but they're just treated like they would be sort of like a huge seller. And I just don't. I'm kind of confused as to at what stage did they become very popular. Were they popular back in the day? I just don't know. But yeah, I feel like I've been living under a rock, quite frankly. I don't know where I've been. I seem to have missed out on this record, but better late than never. So anyway, I said it wasn't going to be an appraisal, but obviously got to talk about it. The good thing is I think this album is absolutely great. I really love it. When people call it a quintessential power pop record, they are not wrong. It's certainly not experimental like some of the things from 1972 or the early 70s in general. It's a very commercial sounding record, but it is just, I mean, it is what you would call a great selection of songs. It's vibrant, very well produced, lovely vocal harmonies, well played. It's just great. It's great all round. Really, really good indeed, and I'm glad I got it. Quite frankly, I really must go and get their other records. Radio City's definitely on the high up on the wants list. I think the standout tracks for me are the two opening on side 2, When My Baby's Beside Me and My Life Is Right. So there you have it. Big Star #1 record. I'd love to hear from you in the comments on this one. Have I been living under a rock? Or is this band actually obscure and everyone's just jumped on the bandwagon? What is the actual score with this lot? Do tell me. Are there any bands that you've missed out on for years and you've suddenly got into and everyone else seems to be into it? I'd love to hear the comments on this one. Also, let me know what you think about Big Star. So yeah, anyway, that's all from me. It's just a short one. Just wanted to sort of gauge a bit of interest and see what everyone else thought. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.